The Lion King seems to be, at first glance, this story about lions and a monarchy and like heir to the throne. So why do you think this keeps appealing to people, despite the fact that we live in a country where heirs and thrones don't seem to ever come into play?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I would say, aside from those themes, I think there's somebody that everybody who watches The Lion King, there's somebody in the show that they can relate to. Everybody has been Simba at one point, right? Everybody's kind of lost their way. There are a lot of people, a lot of parents who come to see our show, bring their kids, obviously, who can relate to, a Mufasa and Sarabi, who are just trying their best to teach their kids these lessons that they just don't quite get, right? So I think that there are, in addition to the things that you said, I think that there are universal themes that everybody can relate to, and I think that that's why the show is, is the phenomenon that it is. I think that that's why people can see it so many times, because at different points in their life, they've been those different types of people. So I think, all of those things.
Right. And now Rafiki has this language that keeps coming up throughout the musical, and at times it seems comedic, at other times it seems like at first when we're asked as the audience, do you understand? And of course no one understands what's going on. So can you speak to that, like what language is that, and why do you think it was incorporated so much into that?
The show has got 5 different languages, and 4 of them are from Africa, and the one is English. And I think because of the way the show is coming from Africa, which is I can relate to the culture, because what Stephen just said is in everyday life. It's something that we know about, and so me speaking that language and the clicks is some kind of uniqueness into that. Because people are like, wow, when I come up and I'm like, wow, what are you saying? Is it you, or is it a tape? That makes me happy, because people are like, oh wow, they think that we are, we're not saying the real language, and yet it's a language that is existing in Africa, in South Africa actually.
It's awesome. What languages?
It's Zulu. We have Zulu, we have Xhosa, we have Sotho, and the 3 of them have clicks.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, because throughout the musical, I thought that was amazing. Yeah, and now you were talking about how the everyday seems to keep coming into play, and there seems to be this like sort of weird dynamic between Scar and Mufasa. We see it in the movie, and we see it much more in the musical, and Scar mentions in Act 2 that he was kind of neglected as a child, and so how do you think that plays into like the dynamic between the 2 brothers?
I mean, Scar is a famous, antagonist. Yeah. Who doesn't like a good villain? But I think that in order for Mufasa to be who he is, Scar has to be that, that kind of bitter, put upon type character. And so the dynamic between them, Mufasa represents balance, and Scar is everything opposite of that. And so when you bring those 2 things together, obviously there's going to be, conflict. And Garrett Sachs, who plays Scar in our show, is fantastic. He's great to play off of, and really fun to hate on stage. So he makes my job easy.
Nice.
Mufasa doesn't hate him.
Yeah. Brotherly rivalry.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, but I also wanted to ask about what you think the dynamic between Mufasa and Simba. We see how he is supposed to punish Simba, but then it doesn't quite ever come to fruition. And do you think like that affects why Simba can't quite ascend to the throne, sort of, when that whole thing happens with Mufasa dying? Do you think Mufasa failed in a way as a parent to bring Simba to the place he is, and like it's only when he speaks to Simba after death that Simba can?
Well, I think Scar obviously plays a big role. plays a big role in that. But yeah, I think parents in general, right? We teach our kids lessons. I have a 14-year-old, and I teach him these lessons, and then he'll still go and do exactly opposite sometimes of what I said to do. And yet, as a parent, you can't help but think that you've kind of failed your child a little bit. So I think that probably Mufasa does feel, a little bit like he's failed Simba. But I think the important thing is that ultimately that they do always kind of gravitate back towards those fundamentals, which is essentially what Rafiki then, and it does. It takes a village. That's what our show is about. It takes a village. It can't be just all on Mufasa's shoulder. It has to be, the community that kind of continues to instill these things in Simba, so that then he can arise to be the person that he's supposed to be.
And he was young, and I feel like he was betrayed. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where when you talk to a kid and say, even though your dad and your parents are always telling you, you got to do this, somebody who doesn't like you to see the good happening will always come in and say, what are they telling you to do? And kids are like sponges, they absorb very fast. So in as much as you say Mufasa fails, like he didn't do a great job, it's got somebody that is trying to twist that, which is a scam, as a bad person. I feel like that's what I always feel too.
One of the questions I wanted to ask first off was about Nala.
Yeah.
And she seems like a really independent lioness and everything. So why do you think she had to wait for Simba to come back to sort of stage a rebellion?
Girl, I wish I knew. No, I'm joking. Because really, no, I'm joking. I think it's a team effort. You know what I mean? I think with life, we can't really just do everything on our own. I think we all need help at some point. And although I think she would have been capable enough to do it, sometimes you need a little extra help.
Can I go back to saying the title of the show is called The Lion King?
Boy, don't start!
But I
don't.
will say, yes, lionesses and women in general have an amazing role in this world, but it takes two to tango. And if the show was called The Lion Queen, maybe things would be different, but it's not.
He's starting. He said it, not me. Those girls are gonna come after you.
Don't, ladies, please.
And also I wanted to ask, because there's this very real PTSD moment for Simba at the waterfall when Timon is falling and he kind of just freezes up.
Flashback.
Yeah, so what do you think about having that sort of PTSD kind of element in a kid's show or a family show?
Well, I think that was the first time that Simba had a flashback of the trauma that happened to him, and that same feeling of that, is it going to happen again? Because Timon and Pumbaa were the first people that he trusted again after he was exiled, so to have that flashback feeling and to think that, oh my gosh, this is happening again. I think it's heavy for a kid to reflect on, and to reflect as an adult of that child, that broken child, to have that, it's definitely a whole other level, and it's an out-of-body experience for me in the show. So I'm sure that the audience is feeling that same sort of energy.
Mm-hmm. And for the both of you, there's this very real sense of throwing back to the ancestors, family, remembering your roots. And do you feel like that became more of a thing for you after doing this show or during the process of doing this show?
Absolutely. When I first did the show, I'm originally from Toronto, so when I first did the show, I had to move to Germany, and that was my first time being away from my family, living on my own. And so I found myself on a new journey of trying to discover myself and get to know, and also to try to remember where I came from. And so this show, we're always telling Simba, remember who you are. And so it was a great opportunity for me to remember who I was. And just because I didn't have my family there to support me, I still had what they left in my heart and what they were able to impart in me while growing up.
Mm-hmm. And with this cast, I think it's what radiates on stage is the sense of family. We all work together, but it's more than that. I enjoy the people I work with, and there's a wider range from kids to people who have been doing the show since it started. So it's nice to have somebody to go to for anything that I may need or any sort of thing I'm going through. Somebody's maybe have done it or will offer 2 cents or an opinion or some sort of thing to help us along our journey. And I think when you work with people you love, it's not work, it's play. So I get to play with such amazing people on stage night after night for how many years. It's a wonderful experience.